is a job, and that I think that this committee exists to solve that issue. And I commend you as its sponsors, including a provision regarding adoption and those that may be put up for adoption in this bill. And I also ask you, and this is something I've been curious for a while, is that the opposition party often refers that any limits upon abortion infringes upon women's rights. And my understanding is that a certain percentage of those babies in the womb are women. So how would that be, quote, double talk, end quote, when this bill seeks to defend the rights of the women in the womb?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Representative Tommy. Representative Hagan and I think I can speak for her, would certainly agree with that statement, and certainly appreciate your support of the bill, and I absolutely agree that very little is said about the women, the actual women, which are approximately half, that are actually being aborted. And these are women just like any other woman today, whether they're age 63 or 24 or 16. These are approximately half are actually women. So that's certainly, in my opinion, a crime against women.
Thank you.
Follow-up?
No, thank you.
Representative Boyd?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, representatives, again, thank you for your testimony today. And I would like to reiterate what Chairman Boyd said, and that is, it does take courage. So I do respect that. And we talk a lot about, I'm just going to put it out there, we talk a lot about Jesus, and I happen to love and know him too. I also love and respect all faith systems and beliefs. So please don't misinterpret that. I come from a diverse community, and I love and appreciate every member. I was studying to be a minister at one point, believe it or not, and so I had that. Oh, that's very kind. I had the privilege of reading the Bible front to back, and my understanding is that Jesus specifically didn't really leave us with a real set of criteria for women. There was not, women were always with him, of course, and he often was their hero when they were most persecuted. My concern, I'm not going to argue with you about when life begins. My concern is legislating a woman's walk, her spiritual walk. My grandma used to always say, you never know what anybody is going through. Be nice to everybody. Be kind to everybody, because you never know what they're going through. And I understand, our role as lawmakers in part is to create an environment that's safe and healthy and say what's right and say what's wrong. I understand all that. But I think there's a fine line between that and legislating somebody's walk, because you do not know what they're going through. And I think that the same Jesus that you referenced, Representative Hagan, presented that in an example in his life with women. So I would just encourage you to consider that as you move forward with this legislation. And that's all. Thank you.
Chairman, Representative Boyd, I've liked you since the moment I met you. I know that's not what this is about, but I really have, I can tell that you're a woman of conviction as well. And I agree with your statements that we are to love people, love women. I think regardless of gender, love people, that is what the word says. And act with utter compassion and, where the ideal is lacking, grace abounds. Where the circumstance is not ideal, I think that should be a conviction to us in our Christian walks to get up out of our pews. Not just in the legislature doing the right thing, but as Christians, embracing women in all phases of their difficulties and embracing the child that's been made in the image of God as well, knowing that we're not only supposed to love, empathize, and have compassion for women, but also the child that Christ in Scripture knew in the womb as it was being formed and before the child was being formed. So I would just, I would take that route in saying I agree with you. I think that we all fall short of what we should do for women, for families, for the impoverished. But that's, I think the beauty of the legislative process is it can be an opportunity to have a catalyst just for all of us to engage more actively outside of the legislature as well. And I'm not suggesting that anybody hasn't done that. We've got a pastor sitting in the room, someone who studied ministry, and I would just agree with you that we are supposed to love and embrace women. And my grandmother, although I never met this particular grandmother, always said the same things to my mother, and she's passed that on to me, that you love people relentlessly, regardless of their circumstance, regardless of how they treat you, regardless of the wrong that's been done, because that's what Christ has called you to do. And I would suggest that that is true for both the woman and the child in the womb, that we don't abandon either of them because of circumstance.
If you allow me to say something too, because I served with your mother for years, and I was so looking forward to serving with her again these previous 2 years, and unfortunately with her health, we didn't get to see a lot of her, I'll never forget those nights in the bowling alley back in '95, when we had those late committee hearings, and we had a lot of nice chats. But one of the things that Representative Peggy and I strongly believe in our faith is we are concerned about the woman who chooses the abortion and then feels the guilt afterwards. And there are ministries that we both have supported financially and otherwise over the years that maybe more years for me than her, but still, that I know her parents very well. I know they have, but over the years too. So, but that we want to make sure that these women that feel the guilt over that decision can come to the saving knowledge of Christ and actually feel the forgiveness that only Jesus can bring, and certainly we strongly understand the example you're bringing up and the ministry that goes along with all that, and certainly appreciate that.
I know, I'm so patient with us. But, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to further that discussion a little bit, because in caring about women, loving women, meeting them where they are in their spiritual walk, meeting them, this is not only spiritual care for women, but also a health care for women. We often pit woman against child, or woman against choice, or child against choice in this conversation, but I know, as a sister of a paramedic, that women have been transported to hospitals after botched abortions. Can't speak to the specifics because of HIPAA, et cetera, and I think we need to do a better job of documentation within abortion clinics. None of us can dispute the horror that can come along with this industry. Kermit Gosnell, anybody who is familiar with that scenario, that was just about 2.5 hours from my home, but women were dying, and this was highly undocumented, and a lot of times the trail from which the issue in the abortion clinic occurs to the woman getting the hospital cannot be traced back because of the way our laws are. So absolutely everything we do is moral doctrine that reflects what we believe in and what we want to pursue via legislation. And I think that we should absolutely, wholeheartedly pursue good women's health care, positive women's health care, things that lift women up and protect them, even in this arena. Even what may occur if this legislation goes into effect, when it goes into effect. We need to care for those women that are in that very sensitive population of women who will be going through a procedure that could be, some may find it not difficult at all. Others may regret the decision their entire life. Like you said, everybody's at a different point, but I think that we need to meet women where they are in all ways possible, and the children that they carry.